You're muted, Mr. James.
All right. Sorry, I don't know how I got muted, by the way. So I was just going to say that, um, can you confirm that you can see my screen and you can hear me well enough? Okay. So I'll take the thumbs up as
Yes,
a.
yes, your screen is open. I can hear you well now.
All right. Perfect then. Good evening. I believe a lot of us are in the same time zone anyway. Good evening, everyone. My name is James, and I am an experienced designer at Sainsbury PLC. It's a supermarket in the United Kingdom, and I am also the founder of FindChow, which is a food discovery and delivery platform here in the UK also. Um, it's just like Tito said, before joining Sainsbury's, I used to work with British Telecommunications, where um, I contributed largely to our B2B platform. Basically, at BT, we sold what's it called? Broadbands, right? Um, Internet, Wi-Fi, whatever you call it. And yeah, I was largely in the B2B space. I think I've spent most of my years in the B2B space. The only time I probably worked in consumer was mostly when I was with GIG, where I actually moved very quickly from the consumer space into the B2B side of GIG Logistics in Nigeria. So anyway, I've been a product designer for like a good number of years, and I've worked across two continents, so to speak, and across a number of countries. Um, And I would largely say that at least I have been able to gather as much experience to tell what is right from what is wrong, maybe, and what is happening from what is to come. So in this session today, I'm going to be yapping a lot about AI because I presume you already know that that's like the next big thing, right? And I'm going to be speaking about the future of product design and some of the things you might need to watch out for in the AI era. So let me just jump right in. First thing I'm going to say also is this talk is going to be built around, it's going to be built to work around whatever level you're on, whether you're a beginner, mid-level, professional, whatever it is. I think we would be able to communicate with each other irrespective of what side of the spectrum you're on. I'm not going to dwell too much on that anyway. So the next thing is this, and this is like the most interesting part for me. Everybody looks at this AI era differently. We feel like, oh, this is a big wave that we have never seen before. And I used to say something right from the early start. Let me just give you a background of the kind of person that I am. Once there's a new wave of something, I'm always very slow to jump on it, most especially, when it has not yet been validated. I remember when AI first came up, and I'm like, is this thing the same as Web3? Geez, what was that thing that was raining then? NFTs, right? I wanted to understand, what exactly was happening. And I remember a few months down the line, I think maybe up to a year though, I realized that this thing has actually come to stay because I saw the level of depth that was coming with it. Now, one of the things that I didn't find in the NFT era was that depth. A lot of people were jumping on, oh, I'm a Web3 designer, I'm a blockchain designer, blockchain developer, and whatnot and whatnot. As interesting as all of those things were, I did not find as much depth that I find in this AI era. Anyway, that's a lot of yapping around that. But one thing people don't really understand is we have survived this age twice. No, no, it's been more than twice, but that I can remember. I mean, based on maybe how long I spent on Earth. I'm still very young, by the way. Um, there is we've survived these things before. Think about when computers came into play. We had the typewriter era where things were largely done. I call it the typewriter era because typewriter was probably the last thing before the computers really took over. And um, things were largely done manually. You kept documents in papers. You had to type stuff with the typewriter onto a paper, and then you had to document that paper. We used to have in offices, we used to have like a very large room, depending on how your office is. Sometimes it's in the basement, sometimes like a dedicated room that had like a repository of documents, like documents everywhere, paper trails and everything. And it felt very interesting that, we could have as much papers. I mean, these days they're going paperless. You wouldn't know the value of what I'm talking about. But at the time, computers came into play, right? They were not just typing things onto papers anymore. They were typing things onto a digital storage. Now, there was a massive shift because some people's jobs were to, um, some people's job were particularly stationed in this, I permit me to call them storage rooms or paper rooms or repository or whatever you call it. Some people's jobs were largely there, and their job was to find all of these documents. For instance, now someone needs a particular file in the office. You go to this person or this department, and they go into that room. They already know how those files were organized. They already knew how to find them. So it was easy. That was their job. But when the computers came, and then you no longer have to type these things out in a typewriter and go store them in a file, in a folder file, you know what I mean? Those people's jobs were largely at risk. Some of these people were also secretaries, right? For offices that were not large enough to have as much or as many documents. Maybe some of these people were secretaries that their job was to type stuff on the typewriter and store them. The thing is, computer gave them access to store these things digitally. So their jobs were literally at risk. Now, those were the people in the typewriter era. Let's talk about the internet age. Internet also came, and a lot of people that did communication, I mean, paper-based communication too, and some manual communications where um, it is for lack of for lack of names right now, let me just use the word the name GD. It is GD's job to take files from one office to the other. I mean, not like within the same location, to take files from this place to like the next city or the next state. It was his job to move things around. Also, there was fax machines. It was some people's jobs to, send faxes and all of that. And then internet came, emails came into the play, things were digitally sent without, the fax queues being needed anymore. The people that were managing the faxes, what was going to happen to their jobs, right? And then the AI age came where things looked like there was nothing else that could shock us anymore in life. There was no other level of technology that could shift us. Every innovation people were building were just, on the layer of, or maybe on the they were just layers rather on the foundation of internet. Now we got into that era and AI came. AI started shifting a lot of things. Everybody started panicking. And I'll tell you where this panic came from. The panic came from the people that have actually experienced the previous era, because they knew that once this thing came, or once this kind of things come, they change the way jobs are being done, the way people look at jobs. It creates a lot of redundancy. And that's that particular fear was cascaded, but maybe not cascaded with the right context. And people started panicking that, oh, AI is gunning for our job and all of that. So one of the things I wanted to achieve with this particular slide is to first of all show the fact that this whole AI thing is not new. It is just a very different context. The same principles apply to when internet came. I mean, you enjoy internet right now, you enjoy mobile phones right now, but there was a time that people were writing letters. Now, let's bring this thing home. What happened to Post in Nigeria? What happened to Post? People stopped sending letters. If a lot of us go ask our parents now, like, oh, how did you fall in love with mom? How did you guys communicate when you were not together? They were sending letters. Post was booming at the time because there were letters to transport from Ibadan to Lagos, from wherever to wherever. But when internet came, Post started struggling. People were not even like sending parcels. But the main things, which were letters, they were not even getting it anymore. So what was the chance for them at this point? Anyway, that is just to tell you how things shifted. People that were alive in that era will not be surprised by AI right now. They probably might be amazed by how much you can do. But I tell you that the shift is practically the same thing, right? Let's look at some of this thing in details. When computers arrived, right, the typing pool felt like, it was the next. There was a massive fear. All professions like, oh, typists. You can't even imagine that we had typist profession at the time. Like, what the hell, typists? Everybody now, provided that you went to school, knows how to type. Anyway, we had typists then, we had clerks, we had secretaries. These were people that had genuine jobs and they were happy with it. These were jobs back in the days that, I mean, you would do, and then you're earning good, so to speak, and you're able to make a living out of it. These people, like I wrote here, they existed to convert handwriting and dictations into typed pages, meeting notes. Now you have all these virtual meeting rooms where you have a meeting and then you record them and then you have the transcript after. There were people situated in every meeting to take meeting, what do they call them that this time? Minutes, right? And then they transcribe them. And computers came and then you could actually like do that instantly, type stuff, keep them forever without even having to create dedicated rooms to store your files. One of the things that I love about, this era, like the previous era, was the fact that the jobs did not exactly vanish. Things moved. Secretaries that retained their jobs were people who carried the same typewriter knowledge into computers. The only thing they needed to do was learn the layers on top of it. Now, this is what I mean. The same typewriter keyboard model is the same thing that we have on our keyboards today. But there were more technicalities with computer than just typing and being able to reset your paper to, I mean, indentation, maybe basically. There was more technicality rather to it. And one thing people had to learn was how to learn the other technicality bits and then and that's the very interesting part, bring their typewriting skills over to that new place. For some other people that didn't have that skill and all they needed to do was be able to find files in archives. That's the word I've been looking for. Find files in archive rooms and all of that. They probably went redundant and had to move into something else. But some people still had the opportunity to convert their current skill and knowledge into what is currently in vogue, into the next shift. And they were able to, just learn a few more things to make themselves valuable in the era that they found themselves now. And now the real lesson I wrote from there is the risk was never the computer. The risk was standing still while everyone else updated their skill. There is a point where stop when recently in my organization there was restructuring. I mean, this is like it's no news to us anymore. A lot of us have just gotten used to the word reality. There was reorganization, and then they started training. They started doing some like recurring trainings on how to adapt when there is a shift and all that kind of thing. And it just made me realize that sometimes the way we adapt to things is quite different. For me, it was almost normal. I'm like, okay, fine. This is something that we've always heard like every now and then, like almost every 2 years. Even in my previous organization, almost every 2 years you hear things like reorg and whatnot. So I have like that thick skin to take whatever is coming and all of that. But there's some people that they are slow to adapt to change. Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things that this training was centered upon, adapting to change. And these are some of the people that were left out in the previous era because if you don't update your skills from using typewriters to using computers, if you don't update your skills from um, um, use finding stuff in archive to being able to digitally organize the same files, then I mean you probably will be left out. The interesting thing is a lot of things that were manually done then was used as the model for what computer now digitally did, or what computer digitally does now, because we still use computer anyway. The same way files were archived is the same way we create documents, create folders and everything on the computer today. Truth is, irrespective of where your job fell into, there was an opportunity for you to upskill and get your place in the computer era upskill from whatever you had in the typewriter age into what exists within the computer era. There is the other era, which was, this particular one, I feel changed a lot of things, but because the computer already existed, it was a very good foundation for this to like come upon. The internet era also includes things like social media, and that's why the internet era did a lot of things. But one of the major things that I highlighted here in this presentation is the communication, because the internet changed how we communicated. Aside how we discover things, right? I think it largely changed how we communicated. And the fear at the time that internet came was, places like post rooms, the telex operators, the fax desk. These things it wouldn't make sense to you because you probably were not, you've never been in an office where there was, how we have photocopying stations in the office where there's a specific place where photocopy fits in, and then maybe there are some people like my organization, we have like facility managers who will help you if you're having challenges using like some of those stuff. Previously, in those odd years, there were fax desks, that there were people stationed there to help you fax your stuff, whatever you have, to the next destination and stuff. So there were actual jobs that were centered around communications. I mean, if we talk about communications, then we're talking about digital communications, PR, and all of that. But back then, there were communication was centered around presses, TVs, and this is even broadcasting now, not even like man-to-man communications. And we had post rooms, a lot of things, and the major aim was getting the message. And like I was talking about night post previous, night post was also like a form of communication. I mean, in the case of Nigeria now, where for me to reach out to my family members in a different state, I needed to write a letter, get that posted, and then night post receives it, night post sends it over, and the other person receives it from night post, and all of those kind of things. It was never real time. And that's another thing I think we should start highlighting. It was never real time. And at a point in time, it started becoming real time because of internet. Also note that the time it took to find a file previously that were those files that were manually done on paper, the time it took back then was also reduced drastically because now we are able to store them digitally. So one thing you will notice, or maybe one pattern you will notice in this different era that I have just spoken about, is time is being compressed. And if by now you don't understand the value of time being compressed, we live in a very fast moving world, and every innovation, every every innovation, every new thing that comes up, right, is doing one thing: compressing time, introducing convenience, making things maybe easy to acquire, easy to deliver, easy to, we're talking about ease, time compression, and convenience. Those are like one of the major things that a lot of innovations, are centered around. Think about it. Your child deck application is bringing you convenience because you don't have to step out of your house anymore. The whole internet thing is bringing you convenience because you don't have to write, put it in envelope, attach a oh god, what's that thing they call now? Maybe postage stamp and then send it over, right? Everything, whether it's business, whether it's personal life, you see how the internet era has transformed how we do business, how we live day to day. And I wrote here that what actually happened is that the people who embraced the new tech didn't lose relevance. Some people to date have not like embraced the new tech as much. But then it has we have gotten to the point where people no longer have choices. Like it's gotten to a point where you can't even my dad years ago would never care about what the internet does. It doesn't even care about whether it has data or not. It doesn't even care about what kind of phone he uses. But my dad now cares about having a phone that is able to connect to the internet. My dad now cares about why Wi-Fi, when Wi-Fi works and when it doesn't. Do you understand what I mean? At some point in time, it was never a thing, but over time, look at how many years internet has been in place. Over time, we have gotten to the point where we could hardly live without internet. So now think about it. Are we going to ever get to the point where we can ever live without AI? Anyway, that's conversation for later. Let's come home to where we are now, right? Please do well to help me with time if I am running too slow. Let's do well to come to where we are now. AI is a threat to everybody. I put it here that typewriter age, the threat was largely clerical work, and the success was around faster documents, the same judgment, the same thing they were able to do, archiving files, or typing new document, the same thing you can do on the computer. It's just that your work is now easier and faster, right? I remember back in the days when they thought about computers, the computers, anything that make your work easier and faster. Anyway, the internet age, manual communications was one of the things that was largely threatened. Manual communication has and everything around it. And some of the successes we had in the internet age is faster reach. It's still the same judgment. You're still sending text messages as you send letters. You're still, sending emails as you fax things. So it's still the same judgment, the same principles. It's just, fast. AI, we've gotten into the AI era, and right now the threat is everybody's job because this AI actually seems very interesting because every industry, I was speaking to a friend who is pro AI, and I was telling him that every industry is affected very quickly by what AI is bringing into the market. And I used to say that it feels more like, oh, this thing is a threat, but it's not. It's just history repeating itself. It's only faster now because the internet age has allowed communications to run fast, and it has allowed you to get a faster reach to different places. And the reason why the AI era is moving fast is because the AI itself solves the problem of slow deliveries. Now, when I started building my startup, we were developing things, developing plenty things. It took time for us to put the ideas together. It took time for us to put ideas together, start developing those ideas, the product requirements, system requirements, functional requirements, all of those plenty documents we're putting together. Then we got into development phase. Um, we had a lot of developers because we're building a marketplace. Obviously, we had about 4 platforms to build at once for us to be able to run the operations of the company. And it took us time to build all of these things, test it. I mean, we did a lot of validation too before going into building, built it, tested, all of that life cycle. The same thing we did back then, if we replicate the thing now, first of all, apologies. This sounds some type of way, but we also have to downsize because the things that required 5 people's job, we can now do it with 2 people's job. Right, we cannot do it with just 2 people. Right, AI makes delivery very fast. AI makes automation very fast. It makes automation easy, rather. Now you can build agents that would carry out actions that you desire within the frame of knowledge and skill that you have built within it, right? So there are loads of things. Implementation has become very seamless. You can use AI to do things that would require 5 sprints in probably 2 sprints if you are serious about what you're doing. Speed is what every of this new age has brought along with it. And we are in interesting times because AI gives speed in everything that is important. Now, we're getting to the interesting parts. AI, okay, maybe not yet. AI isn't actually taking your job, and I'll explain. Before AI came, I learned about this great invention from the CEO of Miro, and he was talking about how before AI there was 20% thinking, and we were doing a lot, like we were doing a lot more than we were thinking. But AI has inverted that. We now do more thinking and less doing. I started seeing this thing this way, but I mean, the CEO of Miro just brought it, he illustrated it in a way that made sense to me, what I've been doing. Truth is, if you are still in the place where you feel threatened that AI can do a lot of things, then you probably need to take some step back to reorganize your thinking. The truth is, AI being able to do a lot of things is an advantage for you because now you spend a lot of time going deeper into what needs to be done. Now, I had a workshop in my office yesterday, and the first question I had with my colleagues was, if you were going to have, I was talking more about agents now in that meeting. I said, if you were going to get a PA that's, oh, I mean, in your level right now, if you were going to get a personal assistant, what are those things you would give to the personal assistant that would lift off the weight for you to actually do your actual job? There are a lot of things we do within our jobs that, in the real sense, if you can, you are sure that before before even thinking about it, you'd have handed it over to someone else to do for you while you like focus. AI has come to be that assistant. I mean, depending on how you see it, this is the time when you can actually do a lot of thinking, a lot of brainstorming, building depth. And I think that's one thing we lacked previously. Building depth. This is the time. If there's any time to do it, this is the best time to do it. One thing I used to say is, when we had internet, we could easily find stuff, right? Google was there to find anything for us. And if I Google something and John Googles something and Vanessa Googles something, three of us will have the same output. But in the world of AI, people have gone from Googling stuff to GPT in it. And the interesting thing about it is the response we will get for the same thing we are looking for would be different. Now, because AI does the job of personalizing your search to whatever knowledge of you it has. Now, that is, I mean, if I start the conversation about how AI affects marketing in itself, that's a very long conversation in its own self. AI is affecting a lot of things, even, design. And I'm going to get to that next. Apologies, I'm rushing so that we could have a lot of time for Q&A. One of the things to look out for today, if you know me very well, you know that I am very, very so not big on roles. I don't like, not roles, sorry, titles. I am not big on titles. I hate when people try to use like unnecessary titles for, stuff. My friends know me so well for that. I hate titles. My title is I'm an experienced designer. That's all. Anything outside of that, please. If it doesn't pay the bills, forget about it. Anyway, one thing is titles are shifting. Not necessarily like titles, how you see yourself or whatever. Titles are shifting because we are the capability of a designer is getting wider. Now, you think AI is shrinking it. AI is making it wider. AI is giving an opportunity for you to expand your knowledge base. Now, expanding your knowledge base, giving you more thought time while it is able to do things for you. See, the same thing we do before, the same thing, just like I was explaining in the previous era, the same thing we do before is the same thing we would keep doing, but with a shift. We need to layer some more knowledge on top of that. And hopefully I'll be able to get into that in a bit. But the titles are shifting. Now, a lot of things are getting more conversational. A lot of tools that you would normally use to do stuff now have conversational assistant embedded in them. Not just chatbots, but assistants that are, let me call them agents that are able to carry out action within the same platform that you would manually do stuff. Examples. What do they call them now? Atlassian, which is Jira, Confluence. They now have in an agent called Rovo, which Rovo can help you to do anything within Jira and Confluence. Miro has what we call Sidekick, which can help you to do anything within your Miro board. It can take every action that Miro does within its ecosystem. Figma has Figma agents. I can go on and on and on and on, right? Every software is now embedding conversation within their workflows. They have agents that help you do stuff. Previously, people started with embedding AI into the workflow, like not necessarily visibly, like in the back end, not visible, just embed it in the workflow. Let's see how that gets on, because nobody wants to drop out of the AI conversation. But now we are now coming to the point where conversational design is becoming very relevant. Any company that you can imagine right now is thinking of how they can create a system where users can speak to an agent within their platform that can carry out actions within their platform. So AI conversation designer is becoming a thing, right? When you think about, and then I delved into this, on UX Design Institute, and one of the key things, like I mentioned earlier, the way we used to design conventional applications is changing. When you are designing specifically for AI, most especially conversational AI, like ChatGPT and the likes, the way you think is different. There is not a linear response, right? Previously, you can design with the sense that, oh, the action the user takes here would derive this other thing. So from the backend, all they just need to do is they post and get. Now, the thing is changing. Responses are getting very dynamic. And as a designer, you need to be able to think within a broad spectrum of how much knowledge does your platform have to be able to give the right response to the user, right? So that's about conversation design. There is a generalist part which would always be like the backbone, what we still do today. Manage flows, think about outcomes, organize researches, build the UI, all the things we do today will still exist. Engineering is coming super closer to design. So a lot of designers will become design engineers. One of the things I found before, both as a colleague and as a recruiter, is a lot of engineers don't have as much detail as a designer has. And as a designer myself that has been coding for years, I can tell you for sure that even as a junior coder, right, what I did back then would usually beat what some senior design or senior engineers would do at the senior front end engineers rather would do at the time. Because of my background, there is a level of detail that my front end applications have that some senior engineers would most likely overlook. So design is getting closer to engineering now. And the interesting thing is AI has made it possible for you to easily translate your design skills into real code without putting too much effort, right? All you just need to do is learn the layer of syntaxes and nomenclatures like namings and all, how just understand how engineering works. You don't even have to go very deep, but understand how engineering works, and then you can start coding. Depending on how deep you want to get into that, you just have to keep increasing your knowledge. But a basic understanding of engineering can get you to a place where you can start shipping stuff yourself. The other thing that is quite critical that I actually wish I could talk about this in more detail is trust and safety. Um, my wife was saying earlier that there was a memo that went out, not even a memo. There was this banner on one of the agents that they built in their office, and then it was saying that people should not, you know, should make sure that when they are sharing organizational data with that particular agent, they should make sure they're not using any of the anthropic models. Now think about that. That's a matter of trust, right? The same organization built the platform, the agent, the same organization added the anthropic models into the agent, but now they put a notice to say, if you are sharing any organizational data, make sure you're not using the anthropic. Do you understand? So there is that ethics, trust, and safety part of design that is coming. Previously, I mean, in my previous place of work, I worked closely with legal because a lot of things that I shaped had like huge deal to do with communications. So I was working in the renew squad at some point, and then we send out of contract notifications to people, and through that out of contract notification, people get access to personalized offers for upgrading their broadband and whatnot. So there was a lot of legal things that we need to clear to make sure that we are not miscommunicating, and whatever offer we tell them they'll get is what they'll get. So previously we used to work largely with the legal team, but now with AI making everything quick and fast, there is the part of, can we still keep or earn the trust of people? There's the part of, how safe is this thing we are shipping, right? And all of those layers in itself. Doesn't mean we will stop working with legal, no, but then there's going to be a design role that focuses on some of these things in this new era of AI, most especially when things have a lot to do with money, health, and vulnerable users, right? Yeah, there's that part. There's the design system. Design systems have always been in existence, right? But in an interesting thing happened like a few weeks ago where our design system team did a design share and we're talking about how they've been working very deeply into seeing how they can build an agent that helps us to easily adapt the design system even while we use Figma agents to build stuff, right? And this is a very large organization. I have more than 3,300 tech colleagues, right? So we are talking about a large organization like that that is now looking to adopt AI into our workflow. So it's not just a thing that is happening on the ground level, right? So design system is a thing, but has been a thing right from time. But now it is turning more towards a lot of us are facing challenges where AI can help you build stuff, but you know how you see a website and be like, ah, that was AI. You know, you can just tell. Now we need to get to a place where people can't even tell the difference whether you use AI to do something or not. You understand? So design system is still a thing and will always be a thing because every organization, every brand needs consistency. There is also the growth and life cycle designer. This was I knew that growth designer was a thing, but one of the things that exploded that for me was when one of my mentees had an interview, well, applied for a job, and they sent the interview invite, and they were particular about the fact that you must have had experience as a growth designer. Now, growth designers is, and it was something I did in my previous place. A growth designer is not someone that just design end-to-end journeys. It's someone that understands the value of acquisition and retention. So you're not just thinking about end-to-end journeys, but then you know how to acquire customers, retain customers, build experiences rather than acquire customers, retain customers, encourage upselling, cross-selling, a lot of, and this mostly exists, in e-commerce marketplaces and maybe, applications that largely have like, paywalls. So what I'm saying in essence is the titles are shifting, right? We are not just like focusing on, before we used to have this T-shaped and whatnot, right? Now we are not just focusing on whether you're T-shaped or not. You need to be able to understand what is happening in this time and put yourself in the space where you are marking a niche and going deeply in it. Like now, I'll say that, I want to become a AI conversational designer. It doesn't take away the fact that you're going to endlessly be a product designer. It just, adds that layer of focus where, this is what I want to do. And then you start layering knowledge on how to make yourself relevant within that space. Right. So another thing to note is tools will keep changing, but the foundation of what we do, and I think I did put this slide after the one I just came away from. I put this right next to it because it might sound like because I have put 6 rows there, it means that, oh, the foundations will be shaken. No, tools will keep changing, but the foundations will always remain the same. System thinking, communication and storytelling, judgment under ambiguity, craft literacy, research instincts, owning the numbers. These things would always remain. One of and I would say that this is supposed to be like a reassurance slide that irrespective of what AI has come to do in life, if you can pride yourself in being able to hold the fort on this side, trust me, you would always keep your relevance. No matter how much AI can do, AI doesn't have that systems thinking ability. It's a large language model. It feeds off knowledge bases and whatever you train it with. but it would not always have that consistent, coherent systems thinking, right? So system thinking is one thing. If you don't have this, these are the things you should first go and make sure you lock down. Communications and storytelling, turning a decision into like a case stakeholders can actually buy. One of the difficult part of our job is being the middleman between the business and the users. The business have their needs, the business have their wants, the users have their needs, the users have their wants. And if you cannot properly marry the business needs and the user needs, you'll probably fail at your job. Because in essence, if users are not satisfied with the platform, then your platform will probably never go. If the business is not satisfied with what you're doing on the platform, you probably would not have a job anymore, right? So there is a very thick balance that needs to come. Like if you don't have that skill, I mean, I think it's one to chase it. The truth is, you one of the skills you need to learn is how to, push things back from the users, from the business. But I'm not going to go into that deeply. Judgment on under ambiguity is, what how do you decide, when we can always iterate? How do you decide, oh, we have validated this? There are two different things, right? There are some things that you can't keep working on. Does it work? Has it failed? Yes, it has failed. You have to drop it. And that's the thing with validation. I have my manager today has something that she has a statement that if I don't hear it like 1 million times in a week, she probably is not at work that week. Have we validated it? I was mentioning earlier how we are that middleman between the business and the users. One thing that would never lose its power is data. If the business say that, oh, we want heaven and earth, and you know genuinely that the users only want heaven, they have no business with earth. How do you tell the stakeholders that we should not be focusing on heaven and earth? We should be focusing on heaven, data, validation. And I don't know where everyone works, but I tell you for sure that I've worked in spaces where if it's not ambiguous, it doesn't exist. They've loaded us with things that when you first look at it, you would have to rethink your life decisions and ask yourself how you got into this profession. But the truth is, as a designer, you need to be able to own you need to be able to hone judgment, right, under ambiguity. You need to be able to break things down irrespective of how complex they come to you. Craft literacy is very important. And I used to say this a lot. If you don't understand, like I mentioned earlier, the basics of engineering, coding with AI would never be something I would advise because there are many loopholes. Most especially if you're looking to ship something, there are many loopholes that if you do not tackle them, it would become a lasting problem for you. And um, basic knowledge might not solve everything, but a basic knowledge will know what you can do and what you cannot do. The interesting thing with the era of AI is it is to the degree of your knowledge that your agent would work. So, and that's why, prompt engineering has become a thing also. People need to know how to prompt AI because the response the AI will give you is largely based on the prompts that you give it. I feel like I've run out of time anyway, but research instincts is the same thing as what we do now. Asking the right questions behind, the questions, if you are speaking with users, you're speaking with stakeholders, you need to be able to have that instinct of, are we asking the right questions? Are we getting the right information? Are we getting the right source of data? Right. And yes, the key thing, which is the principal thing that a lot of people do not actually focus on. They feel like, oh, it's none of my business. I'm just a designer. You need to own the numbers. You need to make sure in all that you do in life, you are very data conscious. I see no reason why your platform should go live without you emphasizing the need for analytics within your platform. Things like even things as simple as Google Analytics, Mixpanel, Sentry, Clarity by Microsoft, name it. I see no reason why you don't even care about metrics. These are some of the things that help you to know if what you've built actually makes sense, beyond whatever research you've done. Also, you need to, if you're working in a business that directly have to do with conversion, I see no reason you shouldn't understand profit and loss statement. Like you need to have good knowledge of P&L. This thing we have built, is it making profit? Is it making losses? You need to have like a very deep ownership mindset. And these things are like basic foundation of a product designer. These are basic foundational skills that every product designer should have. I don't know what you've heard before, but I tell you, you have this, you are a stakeholder king or stakeholder queen. You would not have any problem communicating if you know the numbers. You will not have any problem communicating if you have good judgment under ambiguity. You don't have any problem communicating if you have good systems thinking. Like this, every of these things helps you to build confidence in what you have done and in what you're doing. I think this is like we're getting very really close to my last slide now. What should I focus on now? And yeah, update your skill and keep your judgments. That's what I would say. Pick one niche, pick something. I have given you like an overview into what product design is going to look like. Um, and you would agree with me that some of these roles are already popping up. If you go on LinkedIn now, you see a lot of people talk about, oh, we are recruiting a product designer, but read the job description. You will hear things like conversational AI, conversational designer, had experience, requirements, had experience building conversational UI, had experience with design system, had experience with, these are things that are popping up now in job descriptions. The title might still remain the same, but you see, you will find that some of the titles that I shared earlier are already coming up inside JDs. A time will come when the world will get more familiar with breaking product design into the different titles. I mean, we will still have the core, right? The core product design role, which is the generalist, but you will see a time will come when people will start breaking some of these things. And I know that some organizations are doing it already. So pick one niche, or it could be maybe one AI tool that you want to use to layer a good knowledge on top of what you already have, and then go deep in it. I used to use the analogy of point load and distributed load to explain focus, right? If you try to do many things at once, the impact of a distributed load is usually significantly lesser than the impact of a points load. So if you try to focus, right, it gives you more impact than when you try to do everything at once. So pick a particular niche. And I mean, if you already work in an industry, if you already have like a wealth of experience in an industry, pick a niche that is relevant to that industry so that at least you can grow. But if you're already eyeing something else, like another industry, pick a niche that you feel, is still relevant. So like part of some of the things I mentioned, build wealth of knowledge around that, and then start going into what it could be applying for jobs or, building portfolio around it. The next thing I'll say is ship something real publicly. You need to learn the art of publicly displaying anything you do. I'll speak from the perspective of a recruiter and perspective of a colleague. When I hear that someone is joining my team, I try to look them up or what have they done, right? When I see someone apply to the job that I posted, I try to see what have they done, right? What are the things that they are doing publicly? Like I go to their LinkedIn, if they have a GitHub, I go to their GitHub, if they have Behance, whatever it is, view the portfolio. What have you been doing publicly? Even your Twitter sometimes, like what have you been shipping publicly? The product designer of Trips, I don't know if he's still with Trips, Dara, he started, he publicly built an idea called Pillbeam, and they just recently made an announcement around what Beam 2.0 is doing. And it built this thing completely with AI, I think some couple of years ago. If there's something you should start learning to do, AI has really bridged the gap between ideas and implementation. Build something publicly outside of your normal work, take on side projects, personal ones, if you don't have personal ones, steal your friends' ideas. A side project would not most likely would usually actually beat a polished mock-up. Just do something on the side, validate your skills by doing something, and then don't just do it privately, do it publicly, because there are loads of implications to it. It gives you visibility, it gives you validation, because there are lots of people that would lay their hands on some of these things that you're trying to do. Even a simple like, oh, that's a very great idea, is validation. Build in one domain that you know deeply. Very similar to the first one I said. If you have to build in a domain that you know, don't try to be too quick to go outside of the domain you already exist in. If you find opportunities in other domains, you can jump on it. But if there is no opportunity yet, I would say you stay grounded in the particular domain where you currently are. A lot of us make a mistake now where we just trust AI completely. Is as much as possible, learn to read AI outputs critically, learn to vet whatever it is AI has done for you. And that's why, I mentioned earlier that if you use AI to code things without having like good knowledge of what you're doing, you probably are setting yourself up for like massive failure, or in some cases rather massive debt. Ask what to build before how to build it. Building has gotten really, really cheap, right? With just a £20, $20 ChatGPT subscription, or even Claude subscription. I think that's $24 or something. With just a $24 subscription, you can build heaven and earth, right? So it's not just about how to build now, it's what to build. I so much hate when people just do things that are not relevant to life. I was scrolling through Instagram or Twitter today, and someone built a platform that helps him know when there is light and when there is no light. And the platform also stores data of how much light he uses per time. And that's a very brilliant idea. Find problems around you, build stuff to solve the problems around you. Let it be what to build rather than, how to build it, because AI now has filled the gap. But make sure that whatever you're doing is worth your time, right? And also make sure that it is validating. And part of the what is not just about the project, it's about how important is this to where I see myself going, right? And then the last part is talk to users more. Like, even if it's a side project, find people that share in that particular pain, and validate with them. Even before you start building stuff with AI, validate the ideas you have, talk to people more, let it become a part of you to, inquire more, talk to people, find out how people are already solving the problem, and then use AI to solve it faster, or, solve it more efficiently. So this is a time when the gap to everything has been really bridged. AI can help you to do many things that you would have had to outsource before, like pay somebody to come and do product management for your project management. AI can be your product manager. Pay somebody to help you code an idea that you've had on your mind since ages past. AI can be your developer, right? If you know the right things to say, the right things to prompt it, it will give you the right output. So there is that gap that is already breached. Now you just need to make sure that it is more relevant. And I'm going to summarize everything that I've said into this. The where in quotes of Jesus, English is hard. The where, that's in quotes now, product design is going to, that particular where is rooted deeply in the AI era. And the how do I stay relevant? That question is largely in where you see yourself in the midst of this new shift. don't be too focused on the change. Be focused on how you adapt, right? There's a lot of roles that is coming up. You will not be redundant if you understand where you're going, what skills you already have, and what you need to build on top of that to stay relevant. AI is helping you to work faster. It is not taking the job. It is only going to take the job of the person that doesn't plug himself into what AI is doing. I'm happy to take questions now, and I'm hoping that the questions will help us to. I'm happy to take questions now. I'm hoping that the questions will really help us to maybe go deeper into some things that I haven't like mentioned in my presentation, and maybe also help me to share some like live examples of some of the things I've done within my organization to become very relevant. Yeah, so apologies also for the time when I wasn't like I didn't have the clock close to me. Does anybody have questions or yeah?
Please, if you have question, you can unmute your mic and ask. Go
Please go
ahead,
for it,
please.
Vanessa.
Vanessa, you can go ahead.
Um, Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for the for the class or the presentation and the teaching. Yeah, it has been very interesting to learn. So I've been into design for like a year and a half, and yeah, with the whole AI thing, it has been a lot to wrap my head around. Um, for someone with my like level of experience, how would you like what advice would you give in like be- as dealing with the AI anxiety per se? Like how do you focus on still like because like if I because sometimes I feel like if I use like a lot of AI in my process, I'll end up missing on the basis, missing on like knowing how to I won't say do things the hard way, but knowing how to still have shall I say taste and visual craft, which people usually say comes from like having like a ton of experience. So that's really like my question. I hope you got that.
That's a very interesting question, Vanessa. And one of the things I fear the most is people coming to me to say, "Oh, James, I want to learn product design now. I want to get into UI UX." And to be honest, yeah, I used to discourage it. But yeah, you're here and you're here to stay, right? Um, one of the first things to do in the AI era, one of the first things to do to kill the anxiety is to first let yourself know that there is a place for you here. As I'm not being a motivational speaker now, but as funny as that may sound, I think it's going to help you build confidence in the fact that you're going nowhere, right? And this is an opportunity for you to like dig very deeply. Now, I said something in one of my previous slides. I said, read everything AI delivers for you, the output, like critically go through them. Now, I am not a backend developer. I've never written backend in my life, right? But I built I built a learning management system as a full stack engineer, built everything front end, back end, cloud, everything you can imagine. And there was a particular day that I focused on the back end for it. I built everything, wrote all the APIs, and I deployed it to Swagger, which is like A Swagger UI is more like API documentation UI. I deployed it to Swagger and I saw everything that I have done. I tested it and they worked. Now, like I said, I had never written backend in my life. I've only learned how to, write React, like front end and all of these things. But then I did Node and I wrote Node.js, did the whole thing. Do you know I built Docker too, by the way? And I'm not trying to blow my trumpet, I'm just taking you on a journey. Do you know that everything I did on the back end to the point where I deployed it and tested it and these endpoints worked and I consumed those APIs and they actually worked on the application? Everything I did was based on prompts. Now, if I wanted to go deeply into backend engineering, I could also do that by practicing daily. I was giving it prompts, right? But the agent I was using was clearly mapping everything that he has done and detailing everything that it is doing. If you want to, I mean, you've spent 1 year in this industry, so to a large extent, you have basic foundational knowledge. If you want to go deeply in it, don't see AI as a threat, see it as an advantage. Everything you want to learn, everything you do with AI, AI can literally let you into its workflow, into how it came about everything. If you find that something within that process is unclear, take it back with prompts to say, I see that you have created XYZ. How did we come about that? And that is where the importance of not just trusting and blindly trusting whatever AI has done. That's where that becomes like a very critical thing. If you know that you are in learning mode while you're doing all of these things, you need to be very deliberate about reading every line of what AI is dishing out to you. Do you get what I mean? So that becomes your leverage. A lot of the things that AI did, so there were some endpoints that, the request body did not come in the way that I wanted it to come. I went back to, rectify that even with prompts because I knew what I wanted, right? I knew what I wanted to get out of it. It was easy for me to prompt it in a way that makes it easy for me to, get what I want. Now, in your own case, what do you want out of some of those practices you're doing or some of the things you're using AI to implement? You want to understand how things work out. I was really amazed when Google released Stitches and I used prompt to design something. Stitch did that. Did I say Stitches earlier? Sorry. Stitch did that like how I would have probably thought about it. Right. And I think it's based on the prompts that I gave it. I gave it a very detailed prompt. And then I imported that to Figma. What amazed me the most is Stitch layered everything, named all of the different layers, all the frames, he named everything, and then he used all the auto layout how I would have used it. That's an interesting thing, right? But you might want to go deeply to say, why have you done X the way you have done it? AI is able to retrace its steps. I was using AI to review a code sometime recently, and then when he gave me the reports, I asked him to fix something. He did fix it. And then I went back to ask, why did you have to do this way? And he did not take any action at this point, but he gave me a lowdown of why he had to do it that way and what he did. Do you understand? So, like I said, you can make it an advantage rather than just, being a threat. There is the anxiety. Everybody's anxious of how can I, prevail in this AI era, but you can make it work for you. That's what it should be. Let AI be your teacher. Let AI be your next, let it be your chaperone, whatever they call it. I don't know, does that make sense to you?
Yes, yes, it does make sense. Just to follow up, what about the visual like crafts of design? Because like a lot of the talk about AI is mostly how to build things, and I've tried and I've been able to build a few things. So my question mostly is like, how do you like still develop or keep that like visual part of design? Basically, that's my follow-up question.
That's a very interesting question. I would say if if you have an area that you want to develop, right? Remember I mentioned about layering knowledge on top of the foundations you already have existing. If you feel like the visual aspect is one that you want to develop really broadly, then ground yourself in that. Avoid using AI to develop visuals. Look at your strength. Like I said, the question I asked my colleague yesterday at the workshop was, if there is one thing, if you have a personal assistant today, what are those things that you feel like, see, I know this thing too much than to be stressing myself doing it over and over. What are those things you feel like you can hand off to your PA while you focus on the things that you feel would help you to develop more in your career and stuff? Hand those things over to AI, right? Hand those things over to AI while you focus on the part you want to develop. Now, for instance, I talked about, being close to users, like all the research stuff. You can get AI to do all of the research synthesis for you, help you to organize your data, help you to organize like your PRD and make them into actionable tasks. What do you need to do? And once AI is able to do all of that for you, you translate whatever you get from that into visuals, right? So the truth is, find your strength, things that you know that I already know this thing, like the back of my hand. You find your strength. Once you have those strengths like figured out, hand over some of those jobs to AI. Now, where your strength is relevant is because you already know these things deeply, you can prompt the AI rightly to tell it what to do. Think about it in this sense that the AI is your junior developer that you need to give specific instructions to carry out some actions while you focus on other things, as a senior person. So hand over things that you feel you can do effortlessly to AI. And with that, you're also able to vet and build your judgment in your AI's output. Because if you hand it things you already know how to do, your job will now be to review its output. Once you review its output and you see that, oh, this is not matching what I needed to do, you correct it. And by correcting it, you are training your agent, you're training that model to be able to personalize things for you in the way that you would normally do them. You understand? And then you're focusing on visuals. By the time you get to the point where visuals have become a good strength for you, you can always prompt. Like I said, I prompted Google Stitch to um, build a particular journey for me. And it designed it in the way that I knew that, nah, this is cool. This is what I would have done anyway. And the reason why it did that was because I was very detailed in the prompt that I gave it. I told it what colors to use. I mean, at the time, I'd not even like started writing skills.md. I never really started writing MD files for it, but I told it what colors to use. I told it how to combine the colors, what I needed the interfaces to look like. And so everything was detailed because I knew what I would normally do. It was easy for me to give it instructions that would replicate the idea I already had. You understand? And because visuals, is one of my strengths, it was easy. It gave me what I want, what I would ideally want. And I took that to Figma, adjusted a couple of things, based on my own knowledge and relevance to what I needed for. I adjusted some certain things and then I built it. Do you understand? So yeah, focus on handing your strength over so that you can easily train your model and then do the things that you feel like, now I need to build myself in this. And also we learn by doing. As your AI is learning the things that you already know, you are learning the things that you need to know more. Make sense?
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's very detailed. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions at all?
Any other questions, guys? All right, in the absence of any other question, I would like to thank our speaker. Thank you so much for such an insightful session we've had with you. Honestly, you just took your time